I unscrew two screws in the bottom, and it was the transformer screws that should have been mounted from the inside, but they had mounted them the wrong way. And I heard a loud bang, and it was the transformer falling down into the piano, into the organ in the inside. So I get it open, and while this dude is standing there just talking, I realized that the transformer fell and it like shattered. It broke the power supply board. So I'm sat there having to like keep my cool, repair the power supply board now, make all of these trace jumpers, and then I finally get this thing on, and then I can start troubleshooting it.
Welcome to the Over Under podcast, where we talk to musicians, builders, and a variety of industry folks to discuss their stories, insight, and experience surrounding the music business. All right, welcome back to the Over Under podcast. I'm your host, Hank Donovan, and I'm super excited to be talking with Shai of Resurrecting Musical Instrument Repair. How's it going, Shai? Welcome to the show.
It's going good. How are you?
Good. So you're in Cincinnati, correct? That's where you're based out of?
Mm-hmm.
Have you lived there your whole life, or what's your background there?
I've just lived here my entire life.
Nice. So I've been a fan of your Instagram channel for quite a while, and I don't know how the algorithm got it to me, but I swear I absolutely love your content. It's like really great. I'm a fake fixer of sorts. I do kind of fix things. I enjoy it. I'm always feeling I'm over my skis and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. So when I see you work and explain things so well, I'm always kind of blown away. So your content's fantastic.
Thank you.
And that's the reason why I wanted you on the show. And, the concept of fixing gear is interesting to me. I've known some repair people in the past, amp repair, guitar repair, and you are very special. I've never seen anybody have such a wide range of repair skills. That part just blows me away. Like, how did you get to the point of having such a variety?
Yeah, so I started out doing musical instrument repair when I was about 16 years old. I started out just doing modification work to my guitars, and from there it just kind of blossomed into me expanding into other things. I started working at a different musical instrument repair shop and learned a lot about like keyboards and honestly, just tons of different things. I've worked on, organs, pianos, keyboards, guitars, amplifiers, honestly, anything that somebody is willing to send me, I will turn down. I just absolutely love to work on tons of different instruments.
I mean, I'm just seeing, I've seen you work on laptops. I've seen you work on lighting gear. It's incredible to be able to go from those different areas. I mean, there's a similarity of, electronics have some, basic fundamentals that carry on across those places. But when you have wood and guitar, lighting to me is, high voltage stuff could be, interesting. It just really blows my mind. What was like the first thing you ever fixed? Do you remember like the first?
Goodness. Yes, I do. I was probably about 15, 16 years old, and I was learning how to play guitar, and I had an Epiphone Special 2, and one day it just quit making sound, and I was super, like, freaked out, because I was like, oh no, like, this is the only guitar I have. So I remember going down in my basement, getting a bunch of tools out of my dad's tool chest, and opening it up, and I found a broken input jack wire. I'll be completely honest with you. I went back downstairs to find a soldering iron, and I guarantee you I put like plumber solder or something on that because I didn't have like any of the right tools. But I ended up getting a connection good enough where the guitar came back on, and from there I just started opening up stuff and working on anything I could get my hands on.
That's so cool. The last episode we had was with Marcus Reeves of Reeves Electro, and he talked about fixing a fuzz face for the first time. It was his first thing, and then how he's been chasing that feeling ever since. Of that first thing was such a huge impact in his career and life moving forward in electronics. I mean, what does it mean to you to fix gear? I almost want to get kind of philosophical because I have a certain belief in it. I'm just kind of curious what you think. Like, does it go beyond just fixing things, or is it, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm asking this question right,
Yeah,
but,
no, I get you. No, for me personally, it is very deep for me. There's a couple of different reasons why I do what I do. For one, I'm a very meticulous person. I absolutely love just taking things apart and doing like the most meticulous jobs are the funnest to me. Like, I just got done rebuilding an ARP Odyssey. I think I had, I want to say 40-ish hours into it, and like sanding sliders, like cleaning. I just love it. Um, I also really have a deep passion for saving the environment. So whenever I can, prevent something, and that doesn't only just go to like musical instruments. Like if I can repurpose anything, I will do it before throwing it away. So it comes from that. I really hate throwaway culture. So you'll see me work on a lot of like solid state amplifiers, or little tiny pedals that most technicians would turn down and not even be interested in because they're more concerned about money. For me personally, running my business, I really try to focus more so on, rather than like financial or monetary gain for a business, I focus a lot more on giving back to the community and just trying my best to, save as much gear as possible because there will be one day where, you know, amps from the 50s and 60s no longer exist. So I just try to keep them alive for as long as I can.
I mean, you could really tell by your content about how you are willing to share so much insight about how you do repair. I remember when I reached out for you the very first time, I was actually asking you about, you were talking about all this stuff that you were doing in the video, but I saw you cleaning something and you talked about cleaning just now. And I was like, what is that solution you're using? Is it isopropyl? Is it acetone? Like, what do and, to me, those are the skills too that just take just years of experience, problem solving. This doesn't work. This is the magic sauce that cleans, electrolytic, stuff off circuit boards or whatever. How'd you come across, developing those kind of like subtle, really wise techniques, really?
Yeah, so when it comes to like all of the work that I do in general, it's a lot of trial and error, a lot of research. I remember being younger and really struggling to find resources online, just talking about different things when it comes to electronics repair. And me personally, I also have always had the belief that I believe that education, and information should be free to everybody and anybody who wants it. I know that some like work fields, I guess you could say, will try to really, keep certain information to themselves. I'm not a fan of that. If I get people, literally hundreds of people messaging me, asking me what products I use, how to fix things. And I always believe in sharing the information because, like I said, I care more about people having instruments to make music and preserving their instruments for as long as they can. So, for me personally, it's a lot of just researching, a lot of like test patching, never, fully covering an instrument in something before you know what kind of reaction it's going to have. But yeah, just trial and error in all honesty.
Yeah, it's great. I'm also just thinking about your tube work when you're cleaning the tubes. I mean, to me, that's insane. To be able to preserve that ink or the paint that was, screened onto those tubes, 60
Yeah.
years ago and not be able to just rub it off. I mean, I don't know how you would test that over time, but I imagine you've kind of figured out a nice formula that's strong enough and soft enough at the same time.
Yeah, when it comes to cleaning tubes and stuff like that, I actually have the tube organ you're talking about right next to me. Um, yeah, when it comes to doing stuff like that, for me, it really was trial and error. All of those tubes are vintage. I don't want to mess them up, so I know that any type of solvent would wipe away the silk screen. Um, overlay on there. So what I did was I got like a damp cloth, and we just pat a Q-tip into it and just very carefully do like a rolling motion because the rolling motion will help to kind of lift the dirt without touching the actual silk screen itself. But then again, it's still trial and error. I've wiped off plenty of silk screens in my time, which is unfortunate, but you learn different techniques over time of just doing it.
So when you were like learning this, I mean, did you run across like some basic gatekeeping that you were trying to learn stuff and then people were like, oh, that's my secret, you got to put in the time. Or did you find a lot of people that were open and helped you along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely encountered gatekeeping. I'm not going to go into too much detail about like my previous employment or anything, but one of the things with my previous employer, uh, he would always be like, "Oh, well, don't show too much in your videos because you don't want people to know how to do it." But in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, when people see how complex these instruments are, they don't normally want to do it in the first place. They don't want to risk damaging their instrument. And then also on top of that, if somebody is going to try to fix it themselves, they're going to do it whether they have my input or not. One of the big things that was gatekept from me from the beginning was definitely how to clean contacts on pianos. I see a lot of YouTube videos where people will say to use graphite and rub that all over your sensor boards and on your contact pads, when in reality, that is a huge no no. I can't tell you how many keyboards I have seen where people will do that. What you do if you want to clean a contact is you actually use the eraser of the pencil and rub it across there, and it will remove the carbon buildup on the sensor pads and it cleans it. That was one thing that was definitely like gate kept, and people don't really want you to know. But I believe, like I said, all information should be free, in my opinion.
That's cool. Uh, the pencil trick. I remember doing something similar to that, totally not musical. It was RAM. When there was bad
Hmm.
RAM in a tower, I would always use a pencil eraser on that.
Hmm.
One thing, what I was trying to think of with repair that I'm personally scared of when I'm working on anything is just like knowing your limits. Where there's
Hmm.
something that comes in, or when I say something comes in, it's a friend of mine that says, "Hey, I got this amp that doesn't work," and I'm like, "I kind of work on amps, I guess, like very, very low level." So I'm always trying to figure out
Hmm.
like what are my limits? What can I say? I
Hmm.
can't do this. Have you run across that like a lot? Have you ever turned down work? Have you ever said stuff like, "I don't know, that's beyond my pay grade"?
There are some occurrences, I'll be honest. It's not often. The only kind of amplifiers I turn down is if they get above a certain voltage rate, just because I don't have the necessary equipment to safely work on it. For instance, my multimeter is only rated for 1,000 volts, so if anything is even remotely getting to like the 9, 8, 8, 9, 10, 100 range, I don't really want to work on that just due to my equipment. I don't want to blow it up.
Yeah. On that note, have you ever, is there like a piece of equipment that is something when you hear come in, you're like, oh no, not this, none of one of these, like another one of these are a nightmare to work on. I never want to touch one of these. Or is there like a real problematic, not necessarily dangerous, but just a problematic gear?
Yeah, there are definitely a couple of different ones that I immediately think of. Any of the Fender Hot Rod series, It's not that they're dangerous to work on or anything like that. It's the way that the board is mounted. They, I'm not going to crap on them too much, but they basically like when you pull this board down, it's like jamming into the tube sockets. The ribbon cables are like all over the place. And just in general, the Hot Rod series, they're marketed as like a really affordable tube amp, but in all honesty, they have a lot more problems than they are good, in my opinion. Things such as like certain tube sockets I see where they'll overheat. Any amplifiers that use ribbon cables, they tend to overheat and melt. They could cause tons of issues. The Hot Rod series in general, they are underspec'd in some components, like plate load resistors. They put like very very small, like probably half watt resistors instead of 1 watt, so they burn up a lot. Another piece of gear that I'm not super big on working on would also be Rivera amps. Their circuit design, like everything about those amps, are just a nightmare. Which I mean, they sound amazing when they work. I love the tone of them; they're really nice. But you know, the way the boards are set in there, they're really annoying to get out. Really easy to snap off, like hot connections and stuff like that. But yeah, I love old amplifiers, vintage ones. They're the easiest to work on. They're the most reliable. Like I said, I'll repair anything, but yeah, Fender Hot Rod series and Rivera amps, I would say.
See, I have a Rivera amp, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
was kind of entertaining the idea of like recapping it someday, but maybe now, I don't know. Maybe I might avoid that. Uh, is there a
You
piece of
definitely
equipment?
should.
I know. I actually saw Paul Rivera in 2020, and I talked to him, and I told him he was a 1998 knucklehead, and he's
Hmm.
like, "Oh, it needs to be recapped big time." And it's like, you know, I'm just
Hmm.
saying I had a 1998 and never recapped it. So, but is there a piece of equipment that you think is a hard no? Like when anything comes in, I know you say you'll fix anything,
Hard
but is there
no.
something that's a hard no?
Um, in all honesty, not really. I'll work on anything, just like the computer. I never had worked on a computer in my life. And then my customer was like, "Yeah, all of my music files and all of my family photos are on here, and I can't get it to turn on." I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna learn how to work on a computer today."
That's so cool. That's awesome. Is there a piece of gear that you love working on? When something comes in, you kind of light up and say, "Oh, I love these. I 100% confidence and easy peasy."
It Yeah, it would definitely have to be Rockman amps. I get
You
so
do a
many of
lot.
them. I love them so much. They have such an amazing tone. They're super like everything. Tom Schultz, I'm sure that you know his engineering background. Absolute genius. When it comes to disassembly, it's 3 screws to get inside of the amplifier. It opens up. Everything about it was thought out very meticulously to be easily serviceable, and I thank him so gratefully for that. You know, I love working on them.
So what goes wrong with them? Like, why do you get so many? Is there some common
Yeah,
failure that's happening?
yeah, just electrolytic capacitors. You know, electrolytic caps with age, they naturally need to be replaced in every single amp. Most amp manufacturers never tell people that. So if you leave them inside of there, they begin to swell up. They can explode. They can cause a lot of damage. But a lot of the times, what will happen is people will have them lose sound or develop humming. And most of the time, I'd say 9 times out of 10, that's going to be caused by electrolytic capacitors needing to be replaced.
You know, this thought just came across. I don't know the answer. I've never heard of this. I mean, is there anything that can prevent just better maintenance or better care to keep caps to live longer besides not turning on them? Even
Mm,
does the cap have to be powered for it to start swelling and leaking over time? Can you just sit there on the shelf and be fine? Or
Oddly enough, there are definitely some instruments where it's better to actually like leave them on and running than to leave them
On and
sitting.
off.
I've seen people where they'll be like, "Oh, I have this amplifier in storage," and then I just turned it on and it worked for 5 seconds, and then I heard a loud pop, and now have nothing. It's like, "Oh, you exploded your electrolytic." But in all honesty, with capacitors, electrolytic caps, it is just the nature of them. I personally am not really aware of anything that can help extend necessarily the lifetime of a cap. Um, that's a really good question. I'll have to do some research
Yeah, I've
into
never. It
that.
just crossed my mind. I was like, wonder if there's something like just a maintenance, good practice can make them last longer or something. But yeah. Now, also, when I first talked to you a while back, I remember you communicated with me that you actually went to Nashville for like repair. Do you do much of that? Like, going on the road to fix something?
Yeah, so I have in the past. When I went to Nashville, that was quite a while ago now that I think about it. Yeah, I do travel quite a lot. I've gone out to places like Athens for repair jobs, LaGrange, Kentucky, lots of schools and stuff like that. I've gone to Bowling Green a couple of times. But yeah, I get around.
Yeah. Is it just because it's just easier for you to go there than actually like ship anything out for repair? It's like in a studio, or how does that work?
Yeah, so normally a lot of the times it's going to be something, for instance, at my previous job, I went out to, I can't even remember. I do so many repairs. I think I went out to Bowling Green. It may have been Tennessee at that point. I don't remember. Doing a lot of work for schools and things like that, where you have massive computer labs and stuff like that, is normally when I'm traveling and stuff like that. Or if I do work for like studios and they have like Hammond organ, or something that can't be physically shipped without it costing an astronomical amount, then I can go there and kind of do that instead.
So what's your traveling toolkit like? What are your must have for the road? That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it just depends. Normally, when I go out, I always ask people to tell me the make and model of the instrument that I'm coming to repair. Um, and then from there, I'll just pick out the parts that I know that fail most often. And then as far as toolkit goes, I mean, just, your standard run-of-the-mill screwdrivers, nut drivers, multimeter, just stuff like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, that's super cool. I think the idea of just being on the road to fix something has so many unknowns. Where in your own workshop you have all the gear, have all the parts. You're definitely more comfortable, and then being in a high pressure situation where people might be
Mhm.
like, "Okay, we got a session tomorrow. This needs to be rolling like now." Do
Mhm.
you feel that pressure, or is it just something that you just kind of go with the flow?
I mean, yeah, I definitely have been in situations where there has been a lot of pressure. One situation, this happened at my previous employer. It was I a lot of the times I will fix other technicians' mistakes. And I had somebody who brought in a Hammond SK2, I want to say, and these particular piano or the organs, these organs, they have the transformer mounted inside and the bolts go down through the inside and then stick out of the bottom, but they have like little indents so they don't scratch anything. And this particular customer had gone to this other repair shop, and basically they could not fix his instrument and made it a lot worse. And he had a gig that night, so he brings it to me. He's standing over my shoulder in the back while I'm working on this, and he's having a full blown conversation with me. I'm, focused on that, totally fine. And I start unscrewing the screws, and sidetrack talking to him. I unscrew two screws in the bottom, and it was the transformer screws that should have been mounted from the inside, but they had mounted them the wrong way. And I heard a loud bang. And it was a transformer falling down into the piano, into the organ in the inside. So I get it open, and while this dude is standing there just talking, I realize that the transformer fell and it like shattered. It broke the power supply board. So I'm sat there having to like keep my cool, repair the power supply board now, make all of these trace jumpers, and then I finally get this thing on, and then I can start troubleshooting it. I had like less than 2 hours to do it, and I managed to do it, but I told him I was like, you should bring this back to me afterwards so we can get you a new power supply board because it's just, not the best. But yeah, it definitely keeps you on your toes because there are many, many situations where you'll be in, and you just have to be able to, you know, stay on your feet and do that. And in all honesty, my boyfriend, he is also a musical instrument technician. I used to work with him in the previous employer, and he honestly, he's under a lot more stressful situations than I am, and he is absolutely can keep his cool during all of it and just focus on what needs to be done.
I can't imagine the power supply board like that, and you have to basically jump it with wires, or you just jump it with like just jumpers and
Mhm.
solder and cracked board, or
Oh, no, you have
I
to
mean,
repair every single trace in the board that was broken. Luckily, it wasn't horrible. It kind of just chipped off one corner of the board, but it's still
gotcha.
7, 8, 9, 10 traces you have to repair.
Yeah. Oh man, that is a nightmare. When you are in your shop, I'm always fascinated too. What are components that are must have? Is there like a component that you're like, I have to have 100 of these on hand all the time because everything uses, a certain cap or a certain resistor value or a pot
Mhm.
value? I mean, what is there something that just really stands out that I always use these?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 100 UF caps are really, really common throughout lots and lots of electronics. 10 UF caps are really common too. Just in general, I try to keep a very nice selection of caps on hand at all time, um, because that's honestly one of the biggest and most common things that I replace inside of, keyboards, amplifiers.
That's awesome. The idea of desoldering too is it's like that's an insane skill that you have to be good at. And it seems like you have that super down. And I know between leaded solder and unleaded solder, with the older stuff might be a little easier potentially. But then again, you might have corrosion and all sorts of other stuff that makes that even worse. I don't know. What are your thoughts on cleaning out a bad component and getting out? Is that a nightmare sometimes, or how do you go about that?
It can be. It definitely can be. In all honesty, one of the biggest things when it comes to desoldering that I think that really causes people to have problems is just having a little pencil iron that you plug into the wall. Um, those normally don't get hot enough to heat up the trace quick enough in order to get the component out cleanly. So what ends up happening is you're sitting there holding this iron on the trace for an extended period of time, which then causes trace lifting. And then you're like, oh shoot. And then you try to rip it out and then you tear the traces. And then, it's a whole big mess. The biggest thing for getting a component out cleanly is going to be making sure you have your soldering iron set to a decently high temperature. I normally run mine in the 650 to 700 range. And then what I do, if I'm desoldering like a capacitor or something that has big lugs, I will go in and heat it up and use a solder sucker first to remove a good majority of the solder itself. And then you want to go back in with solder wick and remove the remaining amount. And as you remove it, I also like to put my soldering iron on the leads, not necessarily on the traces, but the leads, just to help move it and work it out freely. Um, Another thing also is just in general, like watching the traces, making sure they don't lift because even if you are careful, it can happen. And one of the biggest things also is getting good solder wick. Like there are some brands of solder wick that are absolute crap. They do not work at all.
Mm. Yeah, I've messed with solder work. I've always had a hard time with it for sure. So
Hmm.
definitely might want to pick your brain about a good brand. Like what maybe right
Hmm.
now, what's a good brand?
I forget the name of it. Let me see if I can find the brand of it real quick.
Yeah, the sucker method's always great, and the wick's always been hard for me. And things with multi lugs, triple pull, double throw switches, and you'd be
Mhm.
like, oh man, trying to heat up nine things is a challenge at a time.
Really, the solder wick that I use is NTE branded. Um, that's the best one that I found. By far works the best. I've dealt with some that are just, like I said, they don't even pick up solder. Like they just stick to the board and cause a boatload of problems and are super annoying. So, getting a really good brand of solder wick is really important for how well your repair is going to go.
For people that are listening, and I'm hoping there are a good group of people that are interested in repair, trying to
Hmm.
fix their own things. I try to tell that to a lot of people, like set up your own guitars and try to figure out how to fix real simple problems with jacks or, any of those real simple fixes. You have any advice for someone who wants to maybe get into, in the world of repair? And that's also slash makers too. I always think like
Hmm.
repair people and makers they cross over. Like you made the clock with the symbol, for instance. Love that
Yeah.
idea of, you know, making something too. So it's not just fixing something, getting it back, but I love making. But do you have any advice for maybe someone who wants to, like, where to start? What's the tools to get?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to first getting started, I always recommend people to go check out Uncle Doug on YouTube. Um, he is incredible, honestly. He teaches all the theory of tube amps. He is very in depth. Absolutely love his channel. Fazio Electronics on YouTube also. She is absolutely amazing, does an incredible job. I've learned so much from her. um, Stumac videos, just watching tutorials on their videos, they're absolutely amazing. Yeah, I mean, just in general, as far as tools go, I suggest people like if you want to get into like guitars and stuff like that, Sumac has like a little toolkit. I think it's like the basic setup kit or something they sell. That's always a great option to get started. And they sell different kits depending on what exactly you're doing. If you're doing fret work, if you're doing refinishing work, things like that. Also, I always recommend people purchase an amp building kit, from StewMac or a pedal building kit. Um, Especially the pedal building kits, the board is labeled with all of the components. They give you really nice instructions on how to get clean solder joints. So just in general, it really helps to kind of get your footing, when you're first starting out of how to solder. If you mess up and you put a wrong component in there, then you have to troubleshoot, and you gain experience just by doing stuff like that. You can also always have, give your friend an amplifier, a guitar, and tell them to cut something or, disconnect something somewhere, and then you try to figure it out.
Wow, that's a good one. I like that.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm always amazed with especially pedals. There's always very common things that go wrong. It's always a jack, it's a foot switch, it's a power supply issue. And I think it's really interesting to be able to look at, especially older pedals now, because it's hard to have the surface components, the little micros to work on. But those older ones are, at least you can kind of just see what's going on in there and almost
Hmm.
understand fairly easily, depending on the circuit.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Absolutely, yeah.
with Resurrection, I mean, what's the goal of this business? I know you're fixing everything. You got great content. You're doing all sorts of awesome things. What's the future of the business? You plan on taking like maybe apprentices or and working, getting some staff, or you might already have some.
Yeah, so I don't, it's just me right now. I do everything. I do all my social media content, managing that, all of my repairs, everything is done by me. I do hope to bring on some more employees and train them. As far as my business goes, like I said, I don't really focus too much on monetary gain rather than collectively uplifting my employees, my community, um, and my customers and things like that. I focus really heavily also outside of the repair business and doing charity work. I truly do want to use my business to help others. So, like this year, I plan on volunteering with groups like Food Not Bombs so I can help feed the homeless, you know, and just stuff like that. So, for me personally, my business is not necessarily there to make money, but to help everybody, collectively rise up together. I'm really big into unionization and collective ownership, that concept. I would allow all of my future employees and stuff like that to, voice their opinions. I think that one of the biggest things from working for somebody else is voicing your opinion and not having that heard. It's frustrating and it's irritating to be working in a business and see problems and issues and then say something and be met with, pushback of like, well, this is my business when I see it as, it's our business, we all come in, without every single person there, you don't really have a business. So I believe everybody's voice matters. I hope to, expand so I can offer my repair services to a wider audience and just, help as many people as you can.
That's awesome. I mean, I love everything you said there. I'm curious. There was a person a long time ago that asked me about my business, and that question was like, "What's the first hat you're going to let go of?" You're wearing all those hats, and it's like, what do you think would be the first one that you think would be the most important to let go of?
Um, it's a good question. In all honesty, it would probably be responding to emails and just stuff like that. Um, I have like really, really, really severe dyslexia, so that is a big time consumer for me because, I'm over here like in Chat GPT, asking it to spell check every single text message, everything for me to make sure I don't misspell things. So I think just somebody that would be willing to answer emails and do stuff like that.
That's great. I
Mhm.
mean, with dyslexia, is it? Does he have? Do you have issues with that with schematics?
Um, Schematics, honestly, not really with schematics. There are definitely some things that it makes really, really difficult. I always tell people, when I was a kid, when I was in first grade, my teachers were very perplexed by me because I had this ability to understand extremely complex subjects and ideas and things like that, but I could not spell the word because until I was in like fifth or sixth grade, Um, I remember one time when I was in first grade, I'm super big into cars too, and I had built a
Nice.
little mini combustion engine, and it was like see-through, so you could see all the pistons, all of the everything working. And I brought this into show and tell, and I explained to the entire class, what a piston was, what a crankshaft is, all of these different components. And my teachers at that same semester meeting were like, yeah, so we don't really understand how Shy can explain how a car works, but she can't spell dog. So wow, there's a lot of misconception about dyslexia. I see a lot of people who are like, if you can't spell, you're stupid or you're dumb or things like that. And quite frankly, that's really not the case. It's more so about finding things that work for you. For instance, me personally, one of the biggest things that helps me with dyslexia is my keyboard. Um, when it comes to handwriting things, I will write in all caps because the letters are more distinguishable than lowercase because a lot of them can look similar. And one of the weird things is when I sit down and type. I actually do not know how to spell the words. I remember the way that the words feel. It's like playing piano. I remember the muscle memory of the way that a word feels on the keyboard. But if you ask me to spell it, I would have no idea, you know? So it's really about finding things that work for you to try to overcome those obstacles.
Wow, that's super interesting about just the feel of like a piano. That's
Mhm.
interesting to think of it that way. I know you play guitar too. Are you in any bands? Are you rocking it all, or what do you do?
Before COVID, I used to do a lot of stuff with School of Rock. I used to
Oh, awesome.
play with them. Personally, right now, I'm just working on solo projects. I'm working on, I call it like a magnum opus. I have like 4 albums that'll be concept albums. But like I said, I'm very particular about the way that things are. So I just nitpick it until like I don't even want to release it because I'm just like, this doesn't sound right. We need to change this. And it's like my one toxic trait.
I mean, I just think it's incredible that you have such high skills on repairing stuff to music. It's just really, really impressive. And, I just wish you all the luck and
Hmm.
success in the future because, I mean, you're going to go far. And I think it's great with your whole business philosophy and where you're going with that. I just know, I mean, it's great seeing you doing repair work for people all over the place coming to you. I mean, here at the shop, we even talked about, sending some stuff over to get fixed.
Hmm.
We would really love
Yeah,
to do
send it
that.
my way.
Yeah. So for those who don't know where to see your content, can you give us a breakdown of like where they can find you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on pretty much every single platform. On Instagram is where I kind of reside the most. My account name is Miss Shy Must Die. That handle you can find me anywhere. So YouTube, it's the same. TikTok, that's the same there too.
Awesome. And you got any new plans for new content or any kind of interesting things you're working on besides just the repairs?
I am getting ready in the springtime to actually refinish the cabinet of my piano organ. Um, that's something that you don't really see that often. So that I think will be definitely a big thing. I also have the CP70 back here that I gotta fix some germanium transistors in there, but yeah, I mean, just those two for right now.
I also want to say I'm a big fan of your little lesson videos too, where you had the capacitor and the multimeter. I'd love to see more of those kind of things too. Maybe just like some like lesson breakdown stuff. I mean, it's solid content. And I mean, I watch that kind of stuff all the time. That's like my entertainment when I'm working in the shop. I love just repair things, like the
Hmm.
repair shop or, savage builds. I love those kind of like conversations and problem solvings I'm hearing. But yeah, great stuff. I just want to say thank you for coming on, being
Hmm.
guest number 2 of our podcast series, and it's been awesome. And for everyone else watching, please subscribe and hit the notify and the like button and all that stuff. And hopefully we'll have another podcast up here soon. Shai, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome, and it was going to be a great convo.
Thank you so much for having me.